Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Winter, and I am the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent, non-commercial podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system with topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. One of my goals with this podcast is to shed light on the Brussels ecosystem and open it up, take out the mystery, and share how the different organizations work and how you can get involved. Some time ago, I recorded a special on the Circular Bio-based Europe Infoday with Program Officer and Call Coordinator Brigitta representing the Circular Bio-based Europe joint undertaking. Of course, the natural follow-up to that episode was an episode of zooming in on Circular Bio-based Europe itself. Circular Bio-based Europe is part of the European Partnership Framework. It is in the so-called Institutionalized Partnerships category, which means they have their own corner of the Horizon Europe work programs where they decide and govern their own calls. I managed to get head of program Virginia Puzzolo into the studio together with program officer and call coordinator Brigitta to take a dive into the organization and how they work. It became a long talk, so it is divided into 2 episodes. This first half zooms in on Circular Bio-based Europe's place in the Horizon Europe framework and how they work strategically with the input for the work program they are responsible for. It also provides nice sum-ups of the Horizon Europe program and the process of how Horizon Europe work programs are developed. Please enjoy. The Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Now, it's not like I'm refurbishing the Grant, but I keep making it, try to keep straightening it more and more out. It's like this when you do a startup. I guess people who have been running their own company know how this is and how it feels, that you start up and you have an idea, and then as you roll, you get more and more clear in your mind on what you want to do. Now, I have developed a segment or a theme on my site and in the podcast called the Brussels Office. And under this, the Brussels Office, I of course present the Brussels bubble, the Brussels environment and the ecosystem. So it's a combination of representations you have there, but also the offices that are involved in with the Commission, with the institutions. Hopefully I can get the Commission themselves on board one day. But there are many offices and there are many initiatives in Brussels that I want to fold out and open up for people to get a clear idea what is actually going on in this mythical city of Brussels. It's been a long intro. Normally it's not that long, but it's I guess sometimes it's nice to take you, dear listeners, in the hand. Now today I have 2 guests, and of course the reason for this intro is because this is what we're going to have today. It's under the Brussels Office theme, and I have had this organization in before. It's going to be an episode on Circular Bio-based Europe, and I have 2 nice guests. Dieter, you've been here before, and Virginia. Welcome to both of you. And before anything else, now I am going to. So, ladies first, Virginia, can you please shortly introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Niels. I'm Virginia Puzzolo. I'm the head of program in the Circular Bio-based Europe joint undertaking. I've been working for 20 years for the European Commission in different roles and responsibilities, starting as a scientist and now being at the head of this extremely interesting partnership that we will describe you today.
Thank you. And I always ask my guests on what weight, so to say, which leg the weight is in terms of EU funding. But I guess it's implicit that you are in the funding administrator side. Did you ever write proposals, Virginia?
No, I never, but as I said, I was a scientist as background. I did a PhD in plant ecology many, many years ago. And then I decided to step on the other side of the barricade and go into the policy side. So I wanted to see how we can translate data information we collect from the research side in something that is usable for all of us. And so when I decided to join the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, I really felt that this was an opportunity for me then to move to Brussels, and this I did it. But then I worked all the time in the research, in the framework program for research and innovation of the Union. First in the context of space, then in the context of environment, and now in bridging, I would say, the bridge between what we're trying to do with industry to bring innovation to our daily life, and together to tackle the challenges that the European Green Deal is posing to all of us in terms of climate, in terms of sustainability, in terms of social cohesion. So it's completing, how can I say, the bridge from the curiosity of discovering where we live, how the system work, how our earth work, with the decision we have to put forward to make this system working in the long run, not only for the people that are living today. So yes, we manage money, but we manage the money that serve to innovate, to bring the research, as I said, in our everyday life, and to support our industry to remain very competitive, very innovative, and to be able to provide something different from what we have today.
Yeah, it's a nice intro, like that. And actually, I just realized that you're the closest I've come yet to having a commission representative on board, because you actually, I think you're the first one that actually worked many years in the commission. So yeah, nice. Thanks for that. Dieter.
Hi, thanks Niels for having me back, and I'll have to disappoint you, Niels, because Virginia is not the first person that you talked to that has worked for the Commission before. There was a time that I did that as well.
No.
Yes.
Sorry for that.
No. So my name is Dieter Brigitta. I'm I graduated in applied biological sciences and also some international relations and conflict management. And since 2004, so almost 20 years, I think I've always worked on the border between the public and the private sector. So first for the Flemish government, dealing with different types of subsidies for agroeconomic advice. So that was one thing. Then I worked 5.5 years in the private sector as a grants consultant. So already proactively answering your question, Niels. Yes, I did write funding applications, many of them actually, in research, investments, trainings, etc., for both European funding and local funding. But then in 2012, I had the opportunity to go and work for the European Commission. For about 2.5 years for the Agri-Food Research Unit of DG Research and Innovation. And then in 2015, I had the opportunity to go and work for what was then BBIJU, the Bio-based Industries Joint Undertaking, and which has in the meantime become CBEJU, the Circular Bio-based Europe Joint Undertaking. And this is where I'm still working today together with Virginia,
which we are going to cover in depth in today's episode. Did you, short question, did you like writing proposals?
Surprisingly, yes. This is actually the part of the job that I liked the most. Why? Because what we sold at that time was knowledge and time. And when we went to organizations, companies, but also a lot of universities and even cities, etc., it was always frustrating to see that you had people there who had a great idea that definitely had merits to receive funding, but they just didn't really know where to apply, or they just didn't have the time to just focus some time on really writing a high quality proposal. And being able to help these people out and to write that type of proposal and make sure that their great idea got funding was the part of the job that I really liked the most, you know.
Yeah, but it's you do. Of course, you have lots of people that likes to write proposals, but I always joke a little bit with people because I don't, and I had to do it for some years of my career. So it's a wonderful thing that there are people that like to do these things, because it's a very resource intensive thing to do. Let's attack the today's topic now. It's just for the motivation, as I also had on the fly in here. I want to fold out the Brussels environment for the listeners, right? So many people within this world of ours, this parallel world, as I call it, we, especially if you've been in Brussels, you sort of know the main mapping of how and which organizations and how they fit together and sort of the different categories of them and so on and so forth. But for everybody outside, it's a cacophony. And even for some inside the Brussels environment, they would be in corners where other corners they say, oh, "What's this?" I don't have a clue of how it works. So this is the motivation for the dear listeners, that I give them a chance to see examples of organizations in the different categories, to open it up for them, and so they can see what they are, what they do, but also how they help. And how they can get themselves involved. So that's the idea with the episode that we're going to do today. So we need to have a short introduction, short about Circular Bio-based Europe. Who wants to put the big toe into the sea there? So origin and motivation of the organization, Virginia.
Maybe I can start.
Yes.
So what is a joint undertaking? Let's start from this. So this is a strange
Yes.
word for people that are not indeed in the jargon. It may be interpreted in a very different way. Just the word already say is doing something together. It means that we cannot do this alone. So we need the public and the private that come together and share with budget, but also with vision, what is needed to tackle the objective of our partnership, which is to create a European production and consumption that is circular, sustainable, and is based on biomass resources and products, materials, nutrients that are produced not from fossil, but indeed from biomass that can be recyclable, can be compostable, and can practically come back into the cycle. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the first. Joint undertaking is an instrument that the Commission have decided to include in the Framework Programme for Research and Innovation. So it is under this big umbrella that is called Horizon Europe. Mm-hmm. And there are several joint undertakings in different fields. So we tackled the challenge that is linked to what is called bioeconomy. Others tackle other challenges in the aviation sector, in the health sector, in the energy sector, and these are all based on the same principle of putting together capacity, resources that alone the private or the public could not achieve.
Thanks for that explanation, just for people to get an idea what it is that we're actually talking about. Now, when was it actually the Commission established these things? Do you?
Well, it depends which ones, because at least I would say since 2007, I would say, maybe even earlier than that. I don't know, Virginia.
They've been called before in a different way, but the idea came already in FP6 as a first instrument, and then it evolved in different format. What we are today has been established in 2021 with a specific legislative act, and it refers really to what they call in jargon institutionalized partnership, because we have been created a specific legal entity that is tasked by the Commission to implement part of the budget under the Horizon Europe with a specific focus and objective, governance, etc., etc. But as Dieter said, we have been a second generation of joint undertaking, because we had already one in the previous framework program that this was called Horizon 2020. Mm-hmm. We are not new, but we are more large in scope and in expectation, but the principle and the mechanism, it was already there. It's always being refined, but it's not something new that comes with this cycle of legislation.
You had these joint undertakings, so you did they all of them had to be renegotiated with Horizon Europe? Or
Yes,
how was that? Yeah.
that's the thing. So we are also tied to the European budget, so the 7-year budget. So when BBI started in 2014, 2015, we were the new kid on the block at that time. But before that, the 7 years before that, there were also other joint undertakings that had already started. I think at that time it was for example, the Innovative Medicines Initiative, etc. So, and which has now become the Innovative Health Initiative, etc., etc. So, but during, we need to discuss throughout our lifetime as well, are we still necessary during the next 7 years?
Sure.
So this is, and that's the thing as well. This is also one of the maybe the big differences compared to, for example, European Commission and joint undertakings. Our organization, our joint undertaking, and all the joint undertakings for that matter, they have an end date.
Yep.
So by law, there is an end date to our activities. And then throughout the next years, we will see, okay, does it add enough value to see if indeed a successor to CBEJU would still add enough value, yes or no? But that's in the next couple of years that discussion will take place. But that discussion did take place in the previous years as well, not only for us, but also for all the other joint undertakings.
Yeah. And it's, but you said it beautifully, Virginia, but it is first and foremost collaboration, right? It was a need from the Commission realized that there was a need to have a more structured collaboration in core socioeconomic areas where you could take some steps deeper. That's also why you get funding from the Commission, right? That you're on the budget, I guess.
Indeed, I would like also to add that it's a very interesting mechanism for me, the public-private partnership. And it fits a lot also on our European thinking, because we are not in an American context, for example, where you have an idea, even if you are a small startup or an SME, you can easily scale up, you find easily capitals. In Europe, we have to support growth of an ecosystem, especially if the industries that are behind are relatively young, and they need indeed to be supported to attract the capital needed for the upscale. So that's the situation we are particularly tackling. It's not also the content of what we are trying to do that is very new and innovative, and so need investment in research for that, but it's also the creating the condition for the industry, and particularly the small and medium enterprise, to grow and to test and develop their ideas at the level that then can go to commercial scale. And in Europe, we don't have so many mechanisms, and we know that many innovations, for example, they end in what is called the valley of death, because to go to the step of demonstrating that what works in the lab can work also at industrial scale, they don't have the capacity at the level of capital investment, and even more is very risky. So also the private investors, they don't tend to invest in a very risky and innovative solution. So if we want to boost the green innovation, the public need to invest. But at the same time, we want the commitment from the industrial side that they are ready to upscale. So that's where is the strength of this joint initiative. Is a double commitment that comes from both sides.
Yeah, and I guess also the carrot for everybody there is that they have an influence on what would be funded.
Of course, they are part of the strategic thinking. So they also define what are the priority for the industry. But this is a very also intense negotiation. So it's not just putting on the table the wishful, let's say, list. Is also to ensure that they fit with the political agenda, with the priority that is set by the Commission. And often the two dimensions go in the same direction, but not all the time. So sometimes there are very interesting and intense discussion between our partners.
Indeed, and we'll get back to that a little later, because that's about the influence your place in the ecosystem of Horizon Europe. We'll get into that a little later. Well, I think maybe actually covered things here for the short introduction to you guys, because we saw origin motivation, fine, short on development, yes, current status. Where are you in the? Are you in the middle of your period? So
No,
to
no,
say,
no.
How is it?
It's what is it? We're in 12 days. What is it? Our second call closes. So people still have 12 days to submit proposals. But yeah, it's only the second call of the CBEJU initiative. So in BBI times, we had calls between 2014 and 2020. But for CBE, we're still fairly early, I have to say.
Okay. How long does it run? The contract you have now for the partnership with the commission?
I think we have calls, correct me if I'm wrong, Virginia, till 2027, if I remember correctly. So, and then of course, our organization will last a couple of additional years afterwards, because of course, out of a call, you have projects, and these projects need to be followed up.
Sure.
So I think the organization itself runs officially until, if I remember correctly, 2031.
Okay. That's a nice perspective, yeah. All right. Let's just move on to the next sub-bullet here, because then now we're going to dig a little bit into exactly what I actually said we would go on to a little later, but that's now. That's so CB and your role in Horizon Europe. That is the prime role that you have, right? It is to in that framework, to because you have your own part of the work program. You define goals, and you have a whole system around filling into that, and you are administrating your own goals, right? Is that correctly understood? But it's instead of me sitting now and explaining how it is, that's the whole idea with having you guys on board. So tell me, let's have a fly in on your corner on the Horizon Europe ecosystem, where you're operating. Okay. You want to say something?
Yeah, there's so many places to start, but I might actually pick up on something that Virginia said before, which is it's a true partnership. And, being a public-private partnership, that is also very well embedded in our organization and the way that we work, because our biggest decision-making body is the so-called governing board. In our governing board, there are 10 seats, 5 seats represented by European Commission representatives, and 5 seats that are, let's say, by representatives from our private partner, which is the Bio-based Industries Consortium, BIC. So there you see that they need to agree. So topics that will be funded and projects that will be funded by CBEJ, the topics behind them, they need to be approved by both partners. And this is a very specific, I would say, place in the whole Brussels environment, in the research and innovation funding that we take, because on an annual basis, there is a discussion between the European Commission on the one hand and the private partner, and they both discuss, they say, okay, what are some real industrial needs in this very broad, vast, circular bio-based industries field in Europe? And then the discussion starts, and then ideas are generated, and some ideas, Commission might say, well, that's a great idea because we already have a topic about that in one of our other programs. Great, then we don't need to fund it via CBEJU. Commission might come with, or a BIC might come with specific ideas as well from their members, from their experience within their field, let's say. So it's this collaborative approach, this mix between great ideas that have an impact on European society, etc., on the one hand, but also that will strengthen European bio-based and circular industries. It's that combination, I think, that makes us quite specific within the Brussels environment.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I take another angle instead. For those that are not so familiar with the Horizon Europe program, this is the big framework program for the research and innovation that the Union has created. And it's structured in 3 pillars. So the first one is the excellent science. The second one is the global challenges and European industrial competitiveness. And the third one is the innovative Europe. So now just what are these 3 pillars? So let's say that the first one found the scientist. So Marie Curie students that want to study abroad, they want to do research in other university, the European Research Council, everything, let's say, that is linked to the single person capacity to provide the science and research. The Innovative Europe Fund SME mainly, okay, try to boost the capacity of startup and small and medium enterprise. Where we belong is in the pillar 2. So we are part of there are 6 clusters, and we are part of the cluster called 6 on food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and environment. So we are an instrument that plug under the global challenges. And as you understand, as we are a partnership with the industry, we focus also a lot on the European industrial competitiveness. So that is where we belong in the Horizon Europe framework. But then I like to add, we belong also in the policy context, and we are directly linked to the European Green Deal. That is something now we are all familiar because become part of the way Europe position itself all over the globe. We are the leader indeed of promoting a new way of thinking in our life. That is the one linked to become greener, being able to still remain competitive and having growth, but in a way that is sustainable, and use technology and innovation to tackle the certain challenges that we have.
Thanks. That was nice. Appreciate that. Nice fly into and short, because that's often the difficult thing, to make a short fly into Horizon Europe. Thanks. So, indeed, you are there where industry and research meet, and where most of it is innovation. You also have some research calls there, but most of it is innovation, right? Closer to market. Now, your role. So, as a partnership, that's it, right? You have. I don't even remember which cluster number are you under.
6.
6.
So in that cluster, that work program connected to that, that's your resort area, so to say. You, I guess the commission, anything related to circular elements, bio-based elements, this is where you are communicated with the commission on input for the work programs, right?
But as Dieter explained, our program is not managed as the normal Horizon Europe calls. These are completely managed by the Commission with the member states, and they have a very specific governance for the normal Horizon Europe call. The difference is that joint undertaking are separate entities, so we have our own governance, whereas you said also before, both Commission and industry together decide and agree on the program and on the priority that have to be set in the call. And it's the governing board that takes the responsibility to adopt our work program every year. At the end of the year, we normally publish the work program really at the Christmas time as a Christmas present for all the people that have to prepare the proposal. But then we are nice because we give enough time to build their own proposal, because often our calls, they close in September. So enough time for creating a consortium to tackle quite challenging topics that we put forward in our work program.
Yeah, and I can zoom a little bit out for the listener and just give a show, because normally the work program, because I've been a program committee member myself back in the day, so normal work program and sub work program, so to say, they are formed by input from all kinds of places, from technology platforms, from interestees. There's a certain logic to each sub work program, and there's a program from committee in Brussels where you have member states. So you have that's national government representatives that go and negotiate. Normally you get the work program drafts, and then you talk back and forth between the member states, and finally you agree on what it should look like, and then it's published. So that's the normal sort of overall. I did it very fast now, right? But that's the normal logistics of how these things work. And this is where you differ, because you have your own governance structure around deciding what is supposed to be there, but with some interaction with the commission itself, but not the member states. Yeah.
But the member states, in reality, we have also dedicated role for them. We have what we call the state representative group, which is by governance one of our advisory body together with the scientific committee. So these two bodies have been set when we have been created in 2021. We have called indeed for the creation of these two advisory bodies, and they are consulted and provide very valuable feedback and inputs on all our programming documents, and in particular our annual programs.
Yes, because a lot of member states have a very solid structure around getting input from their national interestees on a specific topic, reference groups of all sorts, working groups, and so on. So there's there's all kinds of channels.
Yeah.
There's a big system, right? No, this is all very good because it moves us, bridges very finely into the strategic part, which is a sub bullet that I put in here, because this is exactly what we're talking about now, right? So this is your finest role, I guess. Yeah, this is really something that where you this is the core, at the core heart of what you do. I put here three sub the partnership goals, strategic research and innovation agenda, and then the structure and the process to get the input for that. I don't know which one you want to start with. Does it make most sense to start with the strategic research agenda?
We can start with that.
Yeah. Maybe I suggest, actually, I'll give a short, why was BBI first created, or what were the things, and then I'll give, let's say, to Virginia to maybe indeed go where we are today. So
please.
I think the reason why in 2013, when the first discussion started about, let's say, our predecessor, do we need it? I think the main reason why in the end BBI was created, because it was a combination of opportunities and challenges. In a sense that when the powers that be looked at the European bio-based sector, they realized that there was great opportunity, but also great challenges. Why? Because it was a very diverse sector. And I think this is also, maybe if you compare us, BBI and CBE, to other joint undertakings, the focus that we have, or the types of projects that we have, can be quite broad. Because what we're looking at is projects in the broad circular bio-based sector. So when we're taking all of these different types of sustainable inputs, different types of bio-based waste streams, etc., and creating a lot of different end products out of them. I'm even today, every time that I see a new project, I'm always surprised by the creativity of these projects with what they have come up with. And this broadness also posed different challenges, because how can you make sure that you bring together very diverse stakeholders that in regular life might never collaborate? A farmer with a chemical company, maybe a waste producer with a city, with etc., agri-food with forestry, etc. So there was potential, but bringing everyone together, that was quite tricky. And with those ideas in mind, one of the reasons, let's say, was that then BBIJU was created with the idea, okay, let's use these projects to bring all these different parties around the table and make sure that some of these great creative research ideas, or maybe some first research outputs, that they just don't stop there. That, we also try to indeed bridge this valley of death, to make sure that we check if upscaling is indeed possible in a environmentally friendly way, economically viable way, and to make sure that we can actually go closer to market. So this was, let's say, the very general reason, let's say, why BBIJU was set up in the first place. But then throughout the years, more and more we started to realize that circularity was already implicitly in our projects, but throughout the years, even during BBI times, that became more and more visible. And then, let's say, through CBE times, there, the C in CBE stands for circular, so now it's really front and center. Now I gladly give the floor to Virginia to, let's say, with that background, to say a bit more about what CBE stands for.
Okay, so in fact, when the discussion started on the creation of the new set of joint undertaking in Horizon Europe, indeed, the question was why? Why do we need a joint undertaking in this context? So we had really to answer, why do we need to continue, and what will be the challenge for the next phase? And this again starts from what we live and what are the priorities set in the political agenda of the Commission that we are currently having. So I mentioned already many times the European Green Deal, but clearly that's not the only, let's say, macro policy area on which we are operating. There are others also linked to the industrial strategy of the Union, and as well linked to other direct and interconnected policy like the common agricultural policy. So if you consider all of that and then you look back, why do you need an instrument in the research and innovation context? Clearly, is to continue to create and support innovation, specifically for the bio-based solution that are, as I said, developed in the lab, but they need to be upscaled. But then, and that's what they are called the specific objective that has been set in our council regulation, so the legal act that have created us. This is not the only one. So we have three. The first is accelerate the innovation. The second is accelerate the market deployment. Again, we are in a context of a joint undertaking where you have an industrial partner. So what is already existing is mature, has been tested, developed, already at a certain level of technology readiness level. This is in the jargon what we use. They need to do the next step. So we have to maturate and deploy into the real market context. But the third objective was to ensure high level environmental performance of whatever system, bio-based industrial system, we are able to demonstrate and create. For us, a key objective is that this is done with the principle that Dieter was mentioning of sustainability, circularity, capacity to perform in a way that we can reduce the use of energy, resources, water consumption. So I create a system that becomes environmental friendly and green on all the different aspects. And this was the novelty of the Circular Bio-based joint undertaking. The other two were already in the previous partnership, but now the big focus is that what we want to develop have to have in all these parts the principle of sustainability and circularity and environmental performance at the core. And how do we did that? So maybe to conclude. So these were the three objectives, the macro level, what has been set to create the joint undertaking. Then we worked for almost 2 years with Commission and the Bio-based Industry Consortium that represent the industrial side to define our strategic research and innovation agenda, which govern all the programming of this partnership. This is a document that is publicly available where all the principles and the priority that have to be tackled throughout the calls and the funding of project need to be addressed in the 10 years of life of the Circular Bio-based Europe joint undertaking. So it's a masterpiece, I will say, of that put together, but really was heavily negotiated because, as I said in another moment of the discussion, even if the vision is common, the way to achieve that vision may be different, and industry and policy have different timing and also priority. So to reach this bridge and to agree on this overarching strategy that is the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda was the big milestone when we started the Circular Bio-based Europe joint undertaking, and is our governing principle along the years of preparation of annual work program and definition of the specific topic and goals.
This work, to being involved as a manager, but also as an employee, to be involved in negotiating, to setting up, to strategically outline how an organization like this needs to run, because this is at all levels. It's the content, it's organizational, it's principles, it's related to European policy documents, it's the big picture back curtain related to what member states at the Commission levels, all this, the council, it's a big one. It's a massive work. There's a lot behind this, because it's these joint undertakings, your flagships for the areas that you are covering. So indeed, all you guys sitting out there that are under, so to say, the resort, the portfolio of organizations like Circular Bio-based Europe, we will get to that later, how they can serve you and why all this is necessary, because there's a lot of good things here for you, and this is what my two guests here are so involved in to shape this up, why this is so important to help you. Now, I'm hovering a little bit with maybe we should go in a little bit into content on calls, because you already started to move a little bit into how the weight is on the legacy. That was my thoughts when you talked about the content, what you want to achieve with the outcome. So what you need to include, what kind of strategic goals you're setting for the sector with the input from them. But where should the way lag? What kind of collaboration are you forging and forming here? So let's just, for everybody out there, what you have with the Horizon Europe, it is state of the art, and the principle of that is that everything should be pushed to the boundary and beyond that. That's a basic ruling principle for everything you do. If you want funding from the European, the taxpayers' money on this, you should do something that is going beyond what is currently possible. And that sounds far-reaching. Some of it is more far-reaching than others, but the basic principle applies everywhere in Horizon Europe. And so does it here. And what the Commission has done, the sort of development in the framework program has moved more and more into complex strategic calls, where you are looking at things at a very, more and more holistically, at least within some work programs, that you cannot just look at a development within, let's say, plastic sorting sensors. It's not just a matter of the technology itself of sorting the plastic. It implies so much more in the sorting mechanism. So what happens when it comes out on the other side? How's the what do you say, the garbage collection mechanism for that, and how does that work? Business models around, so on and so forth. You're much closer to these things than I am, but I've been working with this program as a consultant, and I've been looking at these for many, many years. So it's correct, right, that it has been moved more and more into a holistic approach in the strategic context. Can you explain me a little? Can we dig a little bit into this, because now we're moving into talking a little bit about strategic research agenda and forming of the course. Can you share with us the strategy from your side in relation to this, and how you work with these principles?
I'll just maybe say a couple of practical things, because
Sure.
you can have lofty goals, but the question is, okay, how should they be reflected in our projects? And when you look, for example, in our annual work plan of 2023, there you see how projects will need to convince expert evaluators that this holistic approach has indeed been taken. A couple of examples. In almost all our projects, we ask to clearly include dedicated tasks, or sometimes even work packages, dealing with life cycle assessment. So indeed, that it's just not one sensor here. No, we want to know what comes before and what comes after. In a lot of our projects as well, especially the ones that are closer to market, we require a business case, a business model, and a business plan. So that it's not just, doing research for the sake of research. No, that there is actually a commercial idea behind it. As Virginia said, there are other parts of Horizon that really focus more on the research side, on the generation of ideas. That has their place. This is not what we focus on. So the business aspect is indeed an element there as well. Environmental aspects. We have certain elements that we ask expert evaluators to check about the feedstock sourcing, about feedstock sustainability requirements, because you can have a great process with fantastic products at the end, but if your feedstock, where it comes from, how it's grown, how it's collected, how it's harvested, how it's treated and pre-treated, if that is not environmentally sustainable, then you might also have a problem. So yes, fully agree that, and this is really on a practical level, this is how proposals are evaluated. Yes, all these elements need to be taken into account in order to have a successful proposal.
Maybe I step back to the link with the strategic research and innovation agenda. So
Yes.
So we have described what is the meaning of this long-term document that was really to set the priority, the vision, the challenges that the sector is facing, and the expectation at the policy level. But then how do we link to the yearly programming? Because we have each year a work program which include indeed a call with a number of topics. So every year there is a discussion between the Commission and the Bio-based Industry Consortium on the budget that have to be included in the call and the number of topics per different type of action, we call like this. Because as you mentioned, well, we cover let's say the chain of research and innovation from bringing testing innovation in the lab up to real projects that are called the flagship project, the biorefinery, first of its kind in Europe, that are large investment projects which are funded under CBJU. So in the list, to make an example of the work program and the call that is currently open, we have 4 flagship topics which tackle very different challenges. So one is focusing on the valorization of the aquatic biomass, waste and residues that come, for example, from fishery production. Another one is focusing on the expansion and retrofitting of existing biorefinery that have to go to another level of performance. And these are examples so that the overarching objective is better use biological resources, ensure that there are no waste from production lines that are currently not benefiting from, as I say, the use of residues or better processing. But then the specific objective of each topic is decided each year under a intense consultation with the partners, consultation with the advisory body, and then it becomes a text and it becomes also a budget that is allocated. And this is what the proposals are answering. So they are answering at the end, they are contributing to the overarching objective that are set in our strategic research and innovation agenda, but this is splitted in lots of small actions that are needed to boost the capacity in each piece, let's say, of the value chain and in each sectors that is under our scope and objective.
Yeah. And here,
yes, sorry.
Here you must have had a big exercise moving from BBI to CBE, because I've been involved also in this kind of work in the wind sector. I was involved in the technology TP Wind. So I've been seeing how these working groups work. I've been seeing how complex it is to make a roadmap. You coordinate with the Commission. You have a coordinating group with the Commission on how these which technology, when like the roadmap for each sub-technology, each sub-sector, where should it go, and so on and so forth, what should be implemented when there's certain logic, and then we give money for this here, and then in the next round we scale it up with this, and so on and so forth. Now, it's extremely complex, and it's very interacting with each other, these things. So when you moved on and added the circular part, it must have affected to a huge extent because before in BBI you probably had all these roadmaps, you had all these like timelines on when technology should sort of fall interacting with each other. Am I assuming correctly?
I would say partially, in a sense that even in BBI times we had what is then called a SIRA instead of a SRIA. So the 2 letters were changed, but we also had a strategic innovation and research agenda. So this was also then the guiding document. And also in BBI times, we used this annual workflow, if you will. So at the start of the year, the discussion starts. Which topics do we want to publish in the call of the next year? By December, as Virginia said, we then publish these topics, and then in that year, then the call happens. So, but we always had this strategic innovation and research agenda. Now the strategic, otherwise, and that didn't remain the same, because in BBI times, at a certain moment, we had an update of this strategic innovation and research agenda. Because
Excellent.
yes, because markets change, technologies change, etc. And in that update, I think it was around 2017, there we already saw the butterfly model that was made famous by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which already included certain circular aspects. So it was already there, already as of 2017, included in this guiding document. But the big difference indeed from CBE times is it has really become front and center. But I fully agree that, to going from the strategic innovation and research agenda from 2017 to the one that was there and is still the relevant one for CBE-JU, there was a lot of discussion, because circularity sounds like a very clear and simple concept, but in order to really embed it in everything that we wanted to achieve, that was indeed quite challenging.
It's very complex. And just to let the listeners in on this, so you have Ellen MacArthur Foundation. It's an organization. I think she rode around Earth, and after she came back, something like she sailed around Earth in a sailing ship, and then after that she came back and she made this circular economy foundation called Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and she's make a groundbreaking work on pushing for that principle and that discourse of a circular economy. And that foundation has developed this model of where raw materials comes from and what they develop into and what happens with them in their life cycle, so to say, from being taken out of its original place, and what happens to it when it comes back to like in its lifetime, so to say, to either going to the dump or how it can be reused throughout its lifetime and so on. And it's very fine model that it shows a very complex thing, many complex things at the same time, and it has a form of a butterfly. No, I will link it to on the on the page side of this episode. I will make a link to it so everybody can find it there. This now, what I wanted to that was the creation. Sorry. Virginia.
Yes.
Now, if we zoom a little bit in on your, so you said you had 4 main areas of your strategic, how you call them, flagships of the strategic research and innovation agenda. Is that correct?
No, I was just giving an example of what is the current call. So in current call, we have different type of actions. Maybe if you allowed me, I will explain what are these in the jargon. So, and this is for all Horizon Europe, is not specific for us. If you consider the technology readiness level, is like a thermometer, okay? We start from 1, we end up at 9. And each step of this technology readiness level represent a moment in the research and innovation cycle. So what we found, Horizon Europe fund all, so project in all the different stages. So we don't fund the basic research. We start from projects that are already at what we call TRL 5. So fund projects that want to have a demonstration in a lab. And then we fund projects that go higher, so that they demonstrate in real conditions, so they demonstrate at industrial scale. First in what we call the demonstration plant, and then in a real biorefinery. And these are the specificity of CBE-JU. So the difference, for example, on a call of Horizon Europe from Cluster 6 that also address some challenges of circularity, bioeconomy, is that they normally stop at the TRL 6, so a demonstration that's still in a small scale, while we found projects that really go to TRL 8, which means that they are ready then for the scale of commercial production. That's a real specificity of the joint undertaking and of CBE specifically. So what we call this project, especially the very high TRL, the one that are at industrial scale, we call flagship project, because they are very large, they're kind of a flagship. You wanted to stop for another question?
No. What I want to do right now, I want to try to sort of fold out the strategic research agenda. What key areas you have into some chapters, so to say, the key areas that you're covering is just to give people an idea of the areas you're covering. Just so, how is it? What are the topics that you have in there? Is it going into too much detail?
No, it's fine. I will remain still high level, but what we can say in that sense is that we tackle the challenges along the value chain. So the first part regard the feedstock. So which feedstock we can use, which type of biomass, which type of treatment they need to be used. And this span from biomass that come from agriculture, residues, for example, forestry, from aquaculture, from marine resources, but as well CO2. This is a very interesting feedstock that now we are also focusing on. We have a specific topic to use biogenic CO2 as a feedstock. But as well, another topic that is enlarging on this first part, so the beginning of whatever we try to do, is on using fraction of organic municipal solid waste, because we want to use everything that is biological and can be used instead of landfill or instead of dispersed. Then we move along the value chain. So if we have feedstock, then we have to treat them, process them. And there are a number of technical and especially chemical challenges that need to be addressed. But then why do we do this? It's because we all want to have certain products. And these are products that are called B2B, so business to business, intermediate molecules, polymers that can be used in several different type of application, but they can be also B2C, so business to consumer, to customers, so even solution, which means producing new textile that can be used by H&M. And this is where we end. So we try to have projects, depending on their technology readiness level, that tackle all the challenges that are linked to the feedstock, the processing, the creation and the development of product, up to the commercialization of these products.
Excellent. This is what I wanted. So, because it's for listeners to understand the core elements of what you work with here. It's very thanks. So, do you have working groups covering each of these elements, or how do you work with it when you develop and further discussions on calls every year and so on? How do you work with that?
I would say there's a distinction, let's say, between the work that is being done. So we as CBEJU, we have a very operational mandate in a sense that, the discussion about which topics will make it to the next list for the call of the next year are really between BIC and Commission. They are the decision makers. What we as CBEJU do, we help to coordinate everything. We make sure that these advisory bodies, as Virginia mentioned, the scientific committee, the states representatives group, that they receive the right information at the right time, that they are able to provide feedback to both BIC and Commission to make sure that they have these inputs in an understandable, in a correct, in a usable way. So let's say that the whole coordination, but what we as CBEJU do, again, our mandate is mainly operational in the sense that the end of the year, we receive the list of topics. We say thank you very much. And we then make sure that we organize an annual call for proposals where organizations can submit, or consortia can submit different proposals. We then organize that evaluation, hiring external experts, making sure that each proposal is evaluated in a fair and transparent way. So that's one of the two big things that we do operationally. The second big thing that we do operationally is following up the projects that come out of these calls, just to make sure that, European taxpayers' money is being well spent and that what was promised is also carried out. So in that sense, it's not Virginia, it's not me who are deciding which topics will be in next year's call. This is really something that is being discussed by BIC and Commission.
Okay, I understand division. So they do all the process with workshops, with taking with work groups, with taking care of getting the input that they need, discussion with the Commission, where you are now, what calls do you need, where do you need to go under the different technology areas, and then they make sure that they take the input, they do the draft calls and so on and so forth, and then deciding with the Commission in the end which one will actually go into the work program and so on and so forth. That's BIC.
Just maybe in practice to conclude what you just described correctly. In fact, there is a list of topics that tackle the different challenges. The list is there. The point is to decide what to fund and when, and how much money too. And this is part of the discussion that the Commission and BIC has, and check also if a topic need to be this year, next year, the year after. If the topic have to be at TRL 5 or TRL 7, depending on the maturity of the technology that they want to address. This is what is really the discussion about. It's not too much to start from a blank page. The technology, let's say the roadmap is there. Mm-hmm. The question is that we have a limited budget and we have to take a decision at the end on a final list of topics. And this is what every year happens, is to agree with indeed a group of colleagues, both from the Commission, but also with the Bio-based Industry Consortium, that work together almost for a year to arrive to a final list of topics with a full topic draft text that have to be then approved by our governing board.
Yeah, that's the project. Money decides everything, right? So that's that's a certain set of that's a certain amount of money you set aside, and that's of course reflected in what is available. Is there anything else we need in relation to the strategic part? I think we covered it quite well, right?
I think we have discussed a lot about this. Maybe something a bit more practical.
Yes, because I want to make sure, because then to understand correctly, then so we set aside also because all this related to shaping of course and so on. That's with BIC. But here you still you're the one that you are administrating the networking tool, right?
Well, there are different tools.
We have a platform, exactly. But let's say we can focus on the platform.
And here I will be fading out of the first part of this presentation of Circular Bio-based Europe. The second part of this double episode will be released next Monday. Here, Virginia, Dieter, and I will continue to uncover the initiative. There, my guests share details about the networking platform and how it works. You can look forward to that. Until then, you can check out my website, thegrant.eu, where you will find my full back catalogue of episodes, including the CBE Infoday special that inspired this episode. That's episode number 50. It is also on my website. You can subscribe to the email list to support me. See you next week for the second half of this episode.